Okay, picture this. You've got a team that's been taking the field since the literal 19th century. A team that's packed up and changed cities multiple times, weathered the storms of a constantly evolving game, and somehow survived every single era of American football. Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the incredibly sprawling history of the Arizona Cardinals. They are officially recognized as the oldest active professional football franchise on Earth. So this isn't just sports history, you guys. It's an absolute masterclass in endurance. 1898. Just think about the world back then for a second. We're talking about an era before airplanes, before the widespread use of the automobile, and honestly, long before the modern National Football League was even a thought in anyone's mind. To put that into perspective, the fact that an athletic organization founded in 1898 is still suiting up and playing on national television today means they are older than many modern professional sports themselves. It's a completely staggering baseline for our story. But this brings us to a really fascinating paradox, and it's the core of what we're exploring today. How exactly does a franchise survive for more than 125 years, yet only hold 2 championships? And by the way, both of those came long before the modern Super Bowl era. It's the ultimate underdog survival story. We're looking at a team with immense, unmatched longevity, sharply contrasted against a really puzzling lack of modern championship hardware. So what keeps the heart of this franchise beating through over a century of waiting? Okay, let's dive into the roadmap of the epic journey we're about to explore. To understand how the Cardinals have survived, we're going to look at 5 distinct eras. We'll start with their century-old history, track their path as a nomadic franchise, look at their quest for the title, honor the legends of the field, and finally, wrap up with their modern rivalries and future. Chapter 1. A Century-Old History. So, long before the desert sun of Arizona, the roots of this franchise were actually planted in the gritty streets of late 19th century Chicago. But they didn't start out as the Cardinals we know today. In 1898, they were born as the Morgan Athletic Club. Then, just a few years later in 1901, they went through this rapid-fire evolution and became the Racine Cardinals. But here's a kind of fun geographical twist. They eventually had to shift their name to the Chicago Cardinals. Why? Specifically to avoid any confusion with the city of Racine, Wisconsin. They were really just finding their identity on the fly. Now, you might be wondering, was the Cardinal name some carefully focused group decision to brand the team after a fierce, intimidating bird? Nope, not at all. The team's founder actually bought a batch of secondhand, faded, totally used maroon jerseys from the University of Chicago. When someone pointed out the washed-out color, the owner reportedly fired back that it wasn't faded maroon, it was cardinal red. And just like that, a thrifty purchase over a century ago birthed a legendary brand. No way, right? Chapter 2. A nomadic franchise. Most heritage sports teams build their legacy by totally intertwining with a single city. Well, the Cardinals did the exact opposite. For 62 years, Chicago was home. Then, they pack up the whole shebang and move to St. Louis from 1960 to 1987. After that, they head west to Phoenix in 1988, eventually rebranding as the Arizona Cardinals in 1994. It's a timeline defined by historical instability. Honestly, very few organizations could uproot their entire operation, fan base, and culture this many times without completely losing their identity. Yet, the Cardinals pressed on. And their visual identity brilliantly illustrates this journey. Notice the shift from the interlocking sea of the 1920s to that classic, somewhat friendly bird perched on a football back in 1947. But look closely at that sharp transition in 2005. The beak gets sharper, the eyes get fiercer. It visually represents a nomadic franchise finally planting its feet, shedding that old underdog image and declaring, hey, we are ready to fight in the modern era. Chapter 3. The Quest for the Title.
But looking fierce is only half the battle, right? To really understand the psychology of a Cardinals fan, you have to look at this juxtaposition. Yes, the franchise absolutely has titles. They were the NFL champions in 1925 and 1947. But those are ancient victories in a vastly different league. Compare that to the agonizing wait for modern glory, which peaked in 2009 at Super Bowl 43, a spectacular, down-to-the-wire, unbelievably heartbreaking loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers. To be around for 125 years and come mere seconds away from hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, only to have it slip away, man, that is a profoundly emotional narrative.
Chapter 4. The Legends of the Field. A team isn't just logos and timelines, though. It's built on the backs of extraordinary humans. The early 2000s, captured here perfectly in their 2004 Turning Point season, really marked the end of the Cardinals being viewed purely as league outsiders. This era brought about the arrival of modern icons who changed the culture from the inside out, finally demanding respect from the rest of the league. So the crucial point here is that these guys weren't just players. They brought so much more to the table. Larry Fitzgerald, widely considered the absolute greatest in franchise history, gave them over 17,000 receiving yards, 11 Pro Bowls, and just this unparalleled elegance on the field. Then you've got Kurt Warner, who brought that championship-level veteran leadership that literally willed the team to that 2009 Super Bowl run. And of course, we must remember Pat Tillman, a player who left millions of dollars behind, stepping away from the NFL to serve in the U.S. Army. Tillman's legacy brings a profound national symbolism to this franchise that honestly transcends football entirely. Chapter 5: Rivalries and Future. The Cardinals of today are no longer wandering. They are entrenched in one of the most brutal landscapes in modern sports, the NFC West. Their main rivals, the San Francisco 49ers, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Los Angeles Rams, are absolute juggernauts. In this division, there are no easy weeks. Every single matchup against these teams is a decisive battle for playoff survival. To be a Cardinal today means showing up to a dogfight 6 times a year, fighting tooth and nail just to keep the postseason dream alive. Let's move on and see what they've built for themselves. Today, that nomadic underdog has finally found a magnificent, permanent home. The gleaming metallic exterior and pristine interior of State Farm Stadium prove that after decades of bouncing from city to city, they have built an undeniable fortress in the Arizona desert. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. The timeline spans 125 years. The cities have changed. The logo has evolved. The legends have absolutely left their mark. But the final box remains unchecked. Will this century-old franchise, forged in the fires of survival and relocation, finally complete their epic quest and capture their first Super Bowl trophy? Keep your eyes on the desert.